그럼 되잖아. 이게 우리 하면 안 되고. 저기 아까 고픈 거 그 다음 술 먹잖아.
안녕하십니까. 안녕하십니까. 총무사 윤창입니다. 프로 나온 We will start the opening ceremony. 지금부터 제68차 한국초등과학교육학회 동계국제학교 대회 개회식을 시작하겠습니다. 먼저 국민회가 있겠습니다. 국민.
자랑스러운 태극기 앞에 조국과 민족의 무궁한 영광을 위하여 몸과 마음을 바쳐 충성을 다할 것을 굳게 다짐합니다.
Dear members, I would like to welcome and thank you all members and invite guest speakers to the international conference at Jeju National University in Jeju, Korea. We are about to newly change our national science curriculum in both elementary level and secondary level in Korea. So this coming conference would be a good opportunity for us to think about the new curriculum. Thus, we hope this conference will be the great chance to think about our future science education. It would be wonderful for you to share your experiences and views of science textbook and all diverse partners will provide us with good wisdom and ideas for future science education. I want to thank all guest speakers, the chairman of the Korean Federation of Science Education Society, as well as the president and faculty of the Science Education Department in Jeju National University, paper presenters, organizers, and all colleagues for your great contribution to this conference. We look forward to having a good time. Thank you very much.
대표님 감사합니다. 부모님 감사합니다. 오늘은 국제학술 대회라서 이제 부분 이제 영어로 안내를 할 수밖에 없는 이유는 여기 외국 학자분들 네 분을 모셨습니다. 그래서 그분들이 우리끼리 얘기하면 도대체 무슨 얘기를 하는가, 그분들 흉을 보는가 걱정을 할까봐 영어로 이제 중간적으로 하고요. 그다음에 여기 교수님들과 제가 영어로 도와드릴 추천을 받았습니다. 도와드리고 추천을 받아서 우리 학회 주제인 그 과학교과서와 과학교육과정에 대해서 최근에 각국에서 가장 활발하게 최신 연구하신 분들을 좀 가능하면 좀 젊은 분들로 좀 새로운 연구 동향과 내용과 결과를 알려달라 그렇게 요청을 했습니다. 그래서 이분들이 과학교과서와 교육과정, 그리고 교육과정이라는 우리가 지금 얘기하는 국가교육을 introduce Dr. Dennis Quack. Dennis Quack is a research scientist at the Center for Research in Pedagogy and Practice, National Institute of Education, Singapore. He has over 20 years of research experience in the United States. 작년에 학사학위를 받으셨는데 워낙 그 국가 프로젝트를 큰 단위를 교육 우리 말하는 교육부하고 오랫동안 중요한 정책을 연구를 핵심 연구를 하셔서 싱가포르 교육과 교과서 정책에 대해서는 좀 연구가
Hello and thanks to everyone and the Korean Society for Elementary Science Education for inviting me, in particular Professor Song, the president. This is my first time in South Korea and I am very, very cold. As you know, let me briefly talk to you quickly about Singapore. I hope it works. Can you click on? Singapore as well. The official languages, there are four: English, Malay, Tamil, and Mandarin. But the majority of students in Singapore learn English as their school language. But they don't necessarily speak English in Singapore. Quite a number of them speak Chinese at home, for example. It has been governed by one political party since 1965. So we have one political party controlling Singapore's education policies. What that means is that the policies are usually very long term. It can span from 4 to 8 years to even longer. And we don't have natural resources. You have in Jeju water. We don't have water. We have to buy our water from Malaysia or Indonesia in order to supply Singapore. If you look at the bottom, those are typical housing estates in Singapore. This is where the majority of the Singaporeans stay in. The rest are just very nice pictures of Singapore. Now, this is what primary schools look like in Singapore. This is what a typical classroom look like in Singapore. You have, as usual, tables which can be moved around. You have students facing the teacher, and the teacher is usually the one who's standing and talking in front of a whiteboard. Same is here, and here you have an experiment in science where the students are actually standing on chairs. Usually that doesn't happen a lot. So they're standing on chairs and they're trying to drop things down to learn about relatives rather than where they come from, what family they're from. It's how well you do in the schools that makes a difference for you, for the students. And we have fairly pragmatic citizenry. What that means is that Singaporeans are very practical-minded people. Okay, so they think very practical terms. It's our government expenditure for education is the second highest after national defense. We spend a lot of money on education. And we do a curriculum review every 7 years. That's a very long time. But in between the 7 years, we have about 3 years after the first curriculum review, a midterm review. It's a smaller review, but every 7 years they do a major review. This is how the education system works like in Singapore. It's a national exam. It's called the Primary School Leaving Examination. That is the most important examination for all primary school students. After that, if you do well in the exams, you go to this secondary schools for 4 years. Here, this is not compulsory. The first 6 years is compulsory. What happens here is, depending on your exam results, you go into different kinds of schools. After 4 years, you take another national exam. It's another high-stakes exam. And then you go into junior college to take the A-levels, and then if you do well in those 2 years, you go to university, or if you don't do well, you go into vocational institutes. At every point, there is always an examination that determines where the students go. They are called high stakes because they determine the future of the student. So, interesting point to note for us is that at primary 3, only when we began 1997 to 2004, we began to think about what is needed in order for the future generations of Singaporeans to do well to attain their own pedagogy, their own forms of assessment. At the same time, in 2004, we have a new initiative called Teach Less, Learn More. Because the government realized that prior to that, there's a lot of drill successful, I'll tell you a little bit later on. Now, this I think some people are familiar with. 2012, PISA did an international benchmark across a whole number of countries. And if you were to compare as usual in the top 5 countries, it's usually Singapore top 12. If you look at science, Singapore does 551, slightly better than Korea, for example, but much higher than the international average. Now, this comes from TIMSS, which was done in 2011, which was the only survey that compared Korea and Singapore for science in grade 4. In the results there, it showed, for example, Korea having 65% of the students who reported more than 100 books at home. Now, for Singaporeans, that comes as a surprise because I'm curious because I looked all over the internet and I couldn't find pictures of your students' homes to see whether there's really a lot of books at home. But these are 2 pictures of typical Singaporean students, my friends, kids. And they usually have textbooks in front of them and they're working with textbooks. In front of this one in particular, there is a computer, and the computer is linked up to the internet and a website by the publisher of a textbook. Because what happens is usually when you have textbooks, you have electronic resources that students can use. You have books that if students are struggling, they can try and buy those. You have books on how to revise your science. You have books for parents, so that parents can teach science to their students at home.
From Beijing Normal University. Our research area is on curriculum and teaching methodology, research interest, chemistry curriculum standards, and chemistry learning in secondary school. 닥터 황 박사님은
This is the first time I've been in Korea, and thank you for being here. I'm Min Chunhua, came from Beijing, and I'm a teacher in Capital Normal University now. And this time, I will talk about the science curriculum for Chinese secondary and elementary school, the evolution and the status quo and the problems. 20th century. Since 20th century, there are 2 forms of curriculum in secondary school in China, emerging in China, which is the separated science curriculum and the integrated science curriculum. It can be seen from this table that in the history of science education in China's secondary school, separated science curriculum has been in the mainstream position. In 20th century, mid-80, integrated science curriculum in some areas of China began to experiment into. And now, we in China experimentation areas. The study, the science curriculum reform as in experimental area. And this is the goal, the curriculum goal, and it has 3 parts. And in part 3 is, and in the part 4 of this curriculum, it named suggestion for implement. It includes learning suggestions, assessment suggestions, development, and articulation of curriculum resources, and suggested for writing textbooks and suggestions for teachers' cultivation, and science teaching equipment and configuration of the classroom. And it has an appendix. In this appendix, it has the definition of the verb used in the content standard, and the design and types of teaching activities, and some cases. Some cases include the scientific inquiry example and the instruction, scientific attitudes, and the relation between science, technology, and society. And in the content standards, there are 5 parts, but this time it will change into 3 parts. The Ministry of Education, they made the final submission, and it says that the quality and the difficulty of content, the expression of core conception and sub-conceptions, the division of grade stage have not been tested in practice. So they suggested that generating science standards and the implementation of science curriculum in China and the learning progression study. Influenced by this the definition of the scientific inquiry will be clarified, and the learning progression will be described in the standards. And now, when it comes to the secondary school, this is our curriculum standards, and this is the structure. 4+2, and just it's very similar with the
some similarities and differences between China and Korea. As you all know, that we are now in a process to develop new science curriculum this year. So we are trying to have integrated science curriculum from primary and middle school and high school level. But China has been, making a good and very big 그런 부분에 대한 노력을 하고 있는 부분이 흥미롭고 여전히 우리가 가지고 있는 어세스먼트라는 쪽에도 어려움을 가지고 있는데 어쨌거나 중국이 굉장히 빠르게 이렇게 변화를 시도하는 모습이 굉장히 인상적이었습니다. 이렇게 잠깐 설명드리고요. 질문 있으시면 굉장히 I'm sorry, can you ask one more time?
All science. Do you have all science?
All science. 직권 말씀해 주세요. 직권이 있냐고. He's wondering if you have also the all science subject, like physics, chemistry, all.
We have chemistry, physics, biology, and the geography. Yes, geography.
제가 주제를 가지고
지구 시스템 아까 같은 경우 무슨 사이클 이런 거 있었죠. 순환 개념
체인지
그런 거를 해서 하는데 그러다 보니까 이게 위아래로 영향이 미쳐요. 그래서 중학교에서도 통합 단원을 학년에 하나씩 넣기로 하자. 그리고 우리 초등도 그러면 통합 단원 하나씩 준다. 일단 거기까지는 얘기가
선홍도.
있는데 하다 보면 못 넣을 수도 있어요.
그냥 커피 하시겠죠?
명 나갔어요? 박사는?
원래
두 사람이요.
Okay, now move on to the next presenter, Professor Min Chun Hwan. Professor Min Seo. Sorry. She's the head of the Department of Science and Environmental Studies at Hong Kong Institute of Education.
Korean
Her
elementary science education to invite me to come to this conference, and this makes me the third time to Jeju. But this time, last time when I came in February, it was really very cold, and it was snowing, very, very cold. February 2014. So this time much better.
South Korea, several times to Seoul, to Jeju, to Busan, to different Incheon, yes, to different parts of South Korea, yes. Today I would like to share with you my recent work on research. But actually, there's a very broad way of looking at e-learning. Some people look at e-learning as just the search of multimedia resources, or the use of computer, or the use of different types of interactive platform, or just any online platform. So it's really difficult to give a definition of e-learning, but we try to address the concern of the Hong Kong government to develop something to promote students' learning. There's need to have
First of all, I'd like to share with
context,
you some of
because we need to have some context for study. And it is very similar to the Singapore case, that the curriculum or the learning is structured for streams ago. So, similar to Singapore, all schools can use the books from the recommended textbook list. In the past, this is the recommended textbook list, but starting from 2014, there's a new list called recommended e-textbook. So schools are encouraged to not to replace, but try to base approach. And the example I'm going to use is the seasons. There are autumn. We always try to review. We try to provide opportunities for students to review their own prior understanding. For example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 characters, and there are 4. I can describe them as alternative understandings of seasons. Now, I'm sorry they're in Chinese. I cannot translate it into Korean, but I can try to describe them. For example, the first conception is that there are 4 seasons in a year, and then each season should have 3 months. So 3 months for one season, 3 times 4, guess 12. So it is a very common conception of students, of primary students, of seasons. And the second one is the summer and winter are longer. Summer and winter are longer. And then the third one is in springtime there's always raining. And the fourth one is that nowadays there are only 2 seasons.
We cannot invent that.
There is no
for us to
more
invent
autumn.
And then we have a tour for students. We call it e-paint. Students can drag the green. If he found that February and March should be spring, so they can drag the green color into February and March. If you think that June, July, August, and September should be summer, you can drag the red color. Oh, yes. Now,
Okay, right?
more info.
I know, but you are in the northern hemisphere, right? This is Hong Kong, right?
Yes. It is Hong Kong. It is about Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is located in the northern hemisphere, right?
Only Hong Kong.
I
Only
know.
Hong Kong. Yes.
I know what you mean. Why the autumn is over there? Autumn.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a spring is white, right?
sorry. It's typo. It should be spring.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. You're very smart.
Yeah.
Yes, it is spring. Sorry.
Next time, I'll tell you.
And I think this activity can be modified to include data from different parts of the world. Now, this is something from Hong Kong. Grade 3. So,
What's it, please?
Yes.
Grade 3?
primary 3 students.
I know what you mean, but grade 3?
Grade 3, yes. So, 9 to 10. Yes, 9 to 10.
the grade
Because-
3 is for the good for the evidence. Good teaching method. This
We should
kind
not
of
use
thing.
inquiry for
I
elementary
think,
schools because they don't have the ability to do so. But I don't think so. We can have progression in every approaches. For every approach, you can use progression. For example, for junior even for the kindergarten students, you can also use inquiry, but with more teacher scaffolding and more support to the students or more materials providing.
Okay. First, I would like to thank you all for sharing your wonderful research experience and sharing your practice in your area about science curriculum and textbook. Dr. Dennis, Professor Winslow, and Dr. Pan. So now we would like to have a Q&A time about the 3 presentations we just had this afternoon. So welcome. I would like to welcome your questions. Any questions? Okay, just please make just one question.
Okay.
One question.
Have a project, and students in the classroom can do it together. Maybe it will
At
use.
the end of 4 years, you have an exam, right? We remove that. And you have 6 years in total now. The teachers actually begin to change their practice. For 6 years, they have
It's kind of different from